absolutely.
Right, good.
Good.
Quick change in there.
Good evening. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting of April 11th, 2023. It's now 7 o'clock, and I'll call this meeting to order. If everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I don't see any members of the public here other than the applicant. So unless you have any comments other than what's on the agenda, I will close the public comments. Review and approval of the minutes. We just received these. I'd like a motion to postpone the review and approval of the March 21st, 2023 meeting minutes to our May 9th, 2023 meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. And I'm sorry, Mikhail, you will sit in for Jane.
Okay.
So if you want to cast your vote, we'll include that.
Sure.
Okay. The first item on, oh, sorry, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Motion carries. All those opposed? None. Okay. Regular business. First up on the agenda is a notice has been given by the Planning Board for a public meeting to review a request filed by applicant Eric DeWitt to extend a site plan approval deadline by 1 year. The site plan was originally approved on December 13th, 2018 to construct a 2,920 square foot mixed-use building with associated improvements located on real property in the address of 81 Exeter Road, tax map U3, lot 137 within the B1 zoning district. I see Mr. DeWitt is here. If you'd please come forward. And if you wouldn't mind just giving a little bit of a history of the this particular project, as well as any prior extensions that have been granted, would be great. Thank you.
Sure. The project, like you said, is at 81 Exeter Road. It is to construct a mixed-use building with residential units on the second floor and then commercial space on the first floor. When I previously appeared before you, I was working with a partner to develop as approved. Unfortunately, that party has withdrawn, so I'm currently looking for another entity to help me out and move the project forward. So that's why I'm here to request the extension.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. DeWitt?
How long is the extension for? A year?
Correct.
There was one prior to, so last year Mr. DeWitt came and requested an extension, which was granted as well.
So the actual application was approved in 2021?
20, yes, so 18, and then I have the file here. It was in June of, it was a 2-year extension, approval, June 26, 2020. And then there was 2 years to start active completion, and that didn't happen. So there's an extension.
What was the trigger for active and substantial completion?
Was so site review approval shall be deemed to have lapsed 24 months after the day of approval unless active and substantial development or building has commenced within said period as provided by RSA 674:39. Active substantial development shall be defined as site preparation, demolition, grading, installation of stormwater facilities, and utilities. 24-month period for lapsing of this approval may be extended by majority of the vote. It goes on to that.
Which is what we did last year.
Correct.
And this year, you're just asking for 1 year.
Correct.
Okay.
That's my question. Can it be long to the board?
We can do,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you have anything to add? Well, first of all, I'm sorry, Patrick,
just
did you
had
get your question answered?
Is there anything currently happening on the property at all? Is there any activity of any kind on the property?
I mean, and there's nobody living there.
There's nobody living there,
I
okay.
mean, I continue to maintain it in terms of, like, you know, trying to control the growth of, you know, in the field where the farm is planned. But other than that, not too much. I did have a dumpster on site last year and did remove a fence and started working on the approved landscaping plan. And I hope to do more of that this summer. But really, the project is such that I really need to find a partner to engage with it, or some other entity to really help me out with it, because it's kind of on the bigger side for me as an individual. So that's really where I'm at. But you know, with the approved site plan expiring so soon, there's really hesitation with even the 2 or 3 parties that I am speaking to. So, because there's obviously a lot of planning that goes into it, and you know, with the expiration date coming up so quickly, it's something that I'm trying to address.
Is that bamboo that's growing on the property, is that on yours, or is that not your property?
It is on the border of it. It is
pretty big. That's quite a substantial amount of bamboo.
Yeah, it is being cut back.
It is being cut back.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I took out, I don't know, maybe 40 or 50 linear feet of it last year. I was actually there today, getting a game plan. Fortunately, that crazy cold weather we had really killed it off. So I expect to continue to cut it and deal with it over this summer.
Okay, thanks. I don't have any question.
He wants a fishing pole on him.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant? Art, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think we all understand the current environment for development. It's really difficult. So I'm just wondering if the planning board may consider a longer extension, maybe 2 years, just so we, or the alternative is what is requested, and it's like a yearly check-in. It's like where you're at. But I don't know, just so we're not necessarily wasting time. Maybe it's something, you know, something to consider.
I would be open to 2 years. I know that for other folks that we've granted extensions to, they've been of that length due to the ability to get materials and funding.
Yeah, I think 2 years is a good idea.
Yeah. Is there any drawback to a longer, it gives him, it sounds like it would give you more
I
flexibility.
would certainly be in favor of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, not only more flexibility, but also be able to be more, have your, you know, any business partners be more amenable to the project, right? If you've got more options available to it. Is there any, so is there any drawback from the town standpoint?
No, because the alternative is what's there. It's a really difficult site, and there's already an approved project there, I'd say. So, I mean, I think the board approved it, and they'd like to see it built, I imagine.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I would be fully supportive of that. I think I just want to put it out there that we are continuing to grant on an ongoing basis extensions to site plan approvals to many, you know, applicants and developers along 108. And my concern is that these sites are not being maintained well, whether it's in the conditions of approval are really not being enforced. And the applicants come and they say, we'll do this and we'll do that, such as the entrance to the industrial park or the Cheney property.
Yeah.
So I think if we do have some, and I think you need 2 years, that you really do need that, you know, but what activities, you know, do you think could be accomplished within the next year period relative to the site itself?
In relation to the approved site plan?
Correct.
I mean, I think the landscaping portion is certainly something that I plan on working on.
Is
And
the
then,
demo of the buildings, is that a financial issue?
yeah, a little bit. You know, it's really kind of trying to bundle it all together with somebody and just, yeah.
So that's my only comment, and whether or not we want any type of a specific, you know, action associated with the 2-year extension. I'm just throwing that out This site plan approval fell under the old stormwater regs?
Yes. I just want to throw out there, it's also site plan and special use permit. That's also was granted onto this.
That will run with the land though, not timing, correct?
Correct. Yep.
So I'm open to a motion. I think we have an agreement in the 2 years.
I'll make a motion to extend it to 2 years on the current approved plan.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Okay.
Did you want to add a review after 1 year? No?
No, you'd only would put a condition on it, that something would have to be done within 1 year, or the additional year is not granted. See no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed? Motion granted.
Great,
Wish
thank
you
you very
luck
much.
with finding
Thank you.
someone.
Good luck.
Great, thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah.
And send
Yeah.
anyone my way, please. Great, thanks.
Next on the agenda, pursuant to Section 24-1 of the zoning ordinance amendment procedures and the Appendix B of our site plans of the municipal code of the town of Newmarket, New Hampshire, notice is hereby given that the planning board shall set a public hearing for proposed language to amend Section, I guess that's paragraph 32, dash 161, historic overlay district, and paragraph 3-21 of architectural aesthetic review of the municipal Town Code of Newmarket, New Hampshire, that seeks to add architectural design requirements within the historic overlay district or take any other action relative thereto. See no one here to speak to this.
Yep, this is not the public hearing yet, so.
Okay, so what do we,
Proposed is just,
Chris, was
just
it
comments
us?
right now, the board had taken a look at it, I can go through it. Just introduce it, so, basically this accomplishes, one thing really is to, have all work, any type of development within the historical district reviewed by the planning board. Right now, if it's, there's no planning board triggers that would require any reviews, someone can pull a building permit on the site and alter a historical building, which I think is what Mr. Blackstone was worried about when he first introduced his concerns. So with that, what this does is it basically tells that within the historical overlay district, it directs an applicant to the planning board for any type of review. So you see in 32-161, section C, and so a new standard was created there, and it says any reconstruction, expansion, or exterior alterations to a structure shall require site plan review pursuant to Appendix B of the municipal code of town. So basically that sends it to site plan review. So no, if there was any waivers or anything, no variances will be required because it directs all the activity, review activity to site plan review, which has a different mechanism for any relief. So if that makes sense.
And are these specifically defined within the ordinance?
So
Reconstruction, expansion, or exterior
those aren't
alterations?
defined, so it's basically any development activity, and it goes into site plan review minor. So this goes to basically to site plan review, which is now in section 1.05 applicability. You turn the page, kind of mirrors the language there, number 6, B6, so it'd be a minor site plan review. And any reconstruction, expansion, or exterior alterations of a structure located within the historical overlay district, excluding accessory structures with a maximum floor area of 120 square feet, exterior dimension or less, with no dimensions being greater than 15 feet or less than 8 feet, and a maximum structure height of 15 feet. So really, what we're concerned about, this ordinance is concerned about, is the primary structure, or the major structures within a property, and not a shed, or a fence, typically. And then, so this directs a minor site plan review, so it's really, the materials needed for review don't necessarily have to be extensive. You don't need like a plot plan or anything, unless it requires one, you know, if there's any type of expansion, maybe. But, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just having trouble excluding accessory structures with a maximum floor area of 120 square feet, exterior dimensions or less. So anything under 120 square feet, which would be 10 by 12,
10 by 12
Mhm.
shed.
12 shed.
Correct.
Why do you have this additional language with no dimensions being greater than 15 feet or less than 8 feet and a maximum structure height of 15 feet?
So this was a consultation with the building inspector, or code enforcement officer. He thought this would be prudent, to add this language in.
But I don't think the paragraph's written properly.
Okay.
Excluding accessory structures with a maximum floor area of 120 square feet, exterior dimension or less, that's one, prepositional phrase,
Yeah.
okay? So if you take that out, the sentence would read, or exterior alterations to a structure located within a historic district with no dimensions being greater than 15 feet or less than 8 feet. And then as part of that, and a maximum structure height of 15 feet is gonna apply to any of those. Is it just an incorrect sentence structure? What are the examples here?
What happens between 8 and 15? Yeah, that makes it special.
Well, are they referring to the actual structure? It's to a structure with no dimensions being greater than 15 feet or less than 8 feet. That's pertaining to the primary structure, the way the sentence is written.
Right.
Or and a maximum structure height of 15. So if you have a structure that's over 15 feet, they're exempt.
Yeah.
This is, I guess what I'm trying to understand
Well, the
is,
whole structure has to
what
have
is
120
David-
square feet or less.
No, this is not that part, this is the second part.
No, I
It's
see
referring
this,
to
I
well,
see the
there's
second
three
part.
parts of this.
I thought it was referring to the same structure.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. it's
Like if it
referring
didn't
to-
have a really long side and was super narrow, you know what I mean? Like it could be
Right.
9 feet
It's
wide.
not, it's
and-
not
Then you're right, it's
It's
not
not
written correctly.
written correctly.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like to me. I could be wrong.
So
was
I
reading
guess
it
that's
that
why I'm
way.
asking the question. What's David saying here,
It's trying to regulate the accessory structure.
The accessory structure, okay.
Then I think you need to make
I think you would say,
sentence,
excluding
yeah.
accessory structures which meet the following. Something like that, so that,
Okay.
okay. And what if the accessory structure is more than 15?
More than what?
Then they would govern it.
Yeah.
So the idea is to
Yeah.
not sheds.
So if you had something narrow and long, right?
Then he thinks that may be historical.
I think for simplicity sake,
We just make it 120 square feet.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can rewrite it to say what he wants to say, but that's just, the way it's, the structure of the
It's
sentence
trying to create
is not-
dimensions. I get what they're trying to do, but
Of
I
the
agree.
accessory structure?
But it's
Of-
too wordy. Just keep it, I agree. I think
I'm just gonna
just,
say it with accessory maximum floor area of 120 square feet or less, period.
I mean, it's not for the construction, it's for the reconstruction. It's saying you can't make it bigger than 15?
Well, that's,
If they reconstruct it, they
If they-
can't make it bigger than
They
15?
can, but then it goes for review.
Goes for review. Or for a full site plan review.
No, minor site plan.
but I think he's only David only wanted to refer to the accessory structure. Correct?
Right. So this is all right, here's the primary, first sentence primary. Any reconstruction, expansion, or exterior alteration to a structure located within a historical or district, excluding accessory structures with a maximum floor area of 120 square feet or less.
Well, you don't have to put less because you have maximum.
Yeah, maximum.
Okay. And if he's worried about the height, because then you could get into the dimensions, if he I think maybe excluding
leave
accessory
in the
structure
maximum
with a
height of-
maximum floor area of 120 square feet and a maximum structure height of 15 feet. Right, so if you're getting to
Yeah.
these skinny little, right,
Yeah, a steeple or something.
something's over 16, if something's 16 feet tall, it requires the review.
Right.
Yeah. And a shed is typically with a pitched roof about 15 feet. Does that make sense? So,
Okay, so that makes sense. And, so that links it, a maximum
yeah,
structure
that's the
height of
only thing
15.
Yeah.
exempt.
So, or less, with no dimension being greater than 15 feet or less than 8 feet.
No.
Comes out.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Oh,
right.
yes,
I'm
yes, correct.
striking through that.
Yep,
Yeah.
And so it's after exterior dimension and paren, and the maximum structure height of 15 feet.
correct.
Mhm.
No punctuation.
Correct.
Okay.
So things like roofing would be under this, like if they were changing, let's say,
Yeah,
cover on the roof. Oh,
correct.
okay.
This does. I think that's the
Any
concern.
structure on the property, unless it's under unless it's accessory and under 120 square feet
Less than
and
15.
less than 15 feet high.
So, that's
Thanks.
that. And then, so, okay, and then in section 3.21, line 72, we changed that, we strike out the first, from line 72 to line 73 halfway, and then add a new sentence or clause. It says the purpose of this section is to strike a balance between architectural designs that complement the town's historical heritage and the economic viability of redevelopment.
Yeah, I think that's, the wording is a lot better.
Accordingly, this regulation applies only to structures along Route 108 and the historically overlay district. So basically, plan board will be using section 3.21 as their standards to review these, the architectural elements during minor site plan review. So it links it there. So that's what you'd be basing your decisions off of. Get this one.
So,
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
So, the thing that we started on, which is, agenda item 4B, is this a notification that we're going to have a public review, or this is not a public review, right?
Correct.
Right, okay.
And so that applies even to structures that were built recently and expected within the district.
Yes, in the historical district.
Okay. 'Cause there were some single-family homes right along the river there, which were built
yeah, I was
years
going to
ago.
jump into that after.
Yeah. So that means we might have to re-delineate.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, even the post office, right, this would apply to the post office, or this building
Well-
for that matter, I think is,
Yeah, there were not, you weren't proposing any changes of the site plan yet, right? You hadn't gone through it, there wasn't any.
Those,
correct?
no, those are such, yeah, those,
Yeah, so let's talk about the district itself and how was the district established? And I think it would be great to get the input from the Historical Society, or particularly Mike Provo, as to are there properties that are designated within the district that shouldn't be, which I think goes to your point down on Washington, Lincoln. They have all the new construction homes.
My
all along the
understanding was
riverfront.
we had this list of historic buildings, and it was only going to apply to that list.
that's what this district is.
Oh,
So-
okay,
That's where I grabbed-
but the post office wouldn't be on that list.
Well, it was built in 1980, so.
right.
The post
Before-
office?
Post
then.
office is in the district,
Yeah,
right?
it's in the district.
But
It-
it
these
wouldn't
are-
be on a list of historical buildings, right?
Well, this, I think you're saying two different things.
Okay.
That Newmarket has a historic overlay district,
Right.
which all of
this
these
is.
properties, not buildings, the
Yeah.
properties fall under.
But I thought there was this list of historic buildings, and that's what we were going to use.
Right, and that list delineates, it within that document, has all these properties within that district.
Oh, it does?
Yes.
So the post office is considered a historical building?
Again, I think there's two discussions here, aren't there, Barbie? We could follow up on this. I don't believe that all of the buildings, for instance, this property behind us doesn't have a building, it's a parking lot,
Right.
okay? So it's in the district, but there's not a historic building.
But Bart said he has a file, and in the file are specific buildings, and each building is specifically identified and has like, you know, history and all that kind of stuff.
Right, but what I.
That's not a district, it was specific buildings.
Correct, so within the district, there are buildings that are specifically labeled as a historic building
In the registry.
in the registry.
Right, but I thought this was only gonna apply to the registry, not to the district.
So
That's
if
what I
they,
thought the compromise was. But that's fine if you want to do it to the district.
yeah, like if they close the post office and tear it down, they have to build it back in a way that we would review as a historic structure. We could say, does this mesh with the surrounding buildings, right?
Right, so it's.
Right.
Because it's within the
As-
district.
As proposed.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I
Or
think-
as it exists now.
Well, I think, no, I mean, as this ordinance is proposed,
Correct.
okay? I think what I'm hearing Scott say is that you were thinking the ordinance would apply to historic buildings,
Yeah.
registered historic buildings within the historic overlay district, that then these would apply, these regulations.
These regulations
I thought that
already
was the.
exist.
Yes.
We're just changing them. And the change is, so like, currently, the post office is within the historic district already. In the parcel it sits on.
In the zone
So,
district,
well,
yes.
and if the building got knocked down, we would still have to look to this document if they were to rebuild it.
These
But
these
the
regulations don't
changes-
apply.
They don't?
No.
Because
The
Val,
changes-
you specifically brought up the case of the
Thought that these
veterans, building, right? The
Can
Foreign
I-
Legion.
Let me just answer this question.
Okay.
The current historic overlay district regulation
Yeah.
does not include C.
No, I know,
Right?
but but this is only for reconstruction expansion, but not, it doesn't say anything about building a new building. So that's why I said if they tore the post,
Reconstruction,
if they tore the post office down, it wouldn't be reconstruction, would
yeah. Why would,
Could be
redevelopment,
redevelopment,
reconstruction,
reconstruction.
sure.
it? Redevelopment, I think. So,
But,
I mean,
right,
okay.
yeah, just so.
I see that as construction, not reconstruction.
Yeah, I see what you're-
Reconstruction, I see like they tore half the building down and rebuilt it, or something like that, or it burned partially.
So I think we've got a couple different things we're talking about.
Yeah.
One is, Scott brought this to us, and were you intending to want us to consider adopting architectural standards for the whole district or for historic buildings within the district?
Okay, so the original intent was to use the overlay district as this is written. But there was a lot of disagreement from the board. You specifically
Mhm.
talked about how the, what is it, the Foreign Legion is an ugly building. Maybe you said it was
Right.
architecturally insignificant.
Yeah, I didn't wanna
And-
see
And you
the-
didn't want to see something rebuilt along that line,
I didn't
right?
wanna see.
And so then I thought
Well,
we came
let me
to
just
a
clarify.
compromise.
I didn't want to see the regulations in the ordinance, because then you'd have to go get a variance every time you want to do something. That's why I had proposed that we had just referenced the site plan regulations regarding the architectural approval, like we would if a site plan came before us. Because then we have the ability with site plan to waive any of these. That was my whole recommendation.
Okay,
So
well
that they
then,
weren't part of an ordinance, which is what was the original discussion.
then I think it's great. I for some reason thought that there was opposition to making the historic district like thing, and so the compromise was we were gonna only focus on historic buildings.
I think you're partially right in that, like, if they were to, let's say, they wanted to, I don't know, do something to the post office again, because it's just a brick building, it's
Yeah.
not necessarily historic with like clapboard and whatnot, or replace the windows in the post office. Would they have to replace the windows in the post office based on this, with wooden sashes and like historic looking windows?
No, no.
Because that's not, because that's,
They're referencing, 3.21, so you go through that. And this is already on the books, so they would be subject to it anyways, because it's on 108. post office
So they would have to.
already.
But-
So this is trying to catch those buildings that don't qualify currently, which are those properties off 108.
Okay, I can use a building off 108 for the same example, but my point is you could take a building that is definitely not historic and force people to add historic elements to it. Make it look kind of like a mishmash of historic and not.
I think the idea is to have some kind of continuity downtown, that, kind of keep that feeling of downtown in downtown.
But let's also be clear, just because you're on 108 and you are in the historic overlay district, doesn't mean you need to abide by these aesthetic elements or requirements under site plan.
Well, that's what this says.
That's the review, that's what the plan
No,
review.
no, that's the proposal.
Currently, I think any type of site, if.
Site plan, sure.
Site plan.
Site plan,
Yes,
but this would be different.
yes, this would, any type of.
Right. So if something comes before us for site plan,
Right.
like someone's gonna tear down the post office, absolutely that comes before us. Right. Then this already would apply under site plan.
Right, yeah, I'm talking about a non-historic building. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd have to go
If
out and
it's
find
in
one.
here, then it would apply, as proposed.
It's within the district.
Right, yeah, to me that seems peculiar to force someone to put historic elements on a building that they would not match.
But at the same time.
On the same building, it would look
So-
like a mishmash.
That's true, but at the same time, they can apply for waivers. Say, hey, look, this doesn't make sense right now, this is the history of the building, and they would go from the board.
But-
Yeah,
but as-
so let's take that example, Jeff. So if someone comes and they want to replace their windows because they want to improve the efficiency of their home, and that's what they come to us asking to do, I don't think that that's something that the board would turn them down on. On the other hand, if someone decided that they wanted to make their entire house glass, or that would, reflect everyone else's house around them or something like that, that's the kind of thing I think that we're looking to protect here in the district, is to create some protection for an area of town that's one of the prime values it has is the way it looks, right? The way it looks historically. If you allow buildings to just become so opposed to that and how they get redeveloped or rebuilt or remodeled, then you're going to lose that value you have there. At least that's my understanding. If I looked at other historic districts that have been created in other towns, neighborhoods, etc., that's what they're trying to do. Is they're trying to make sure that you don't have something that's so incongruent it kind of ruins the whole point of what you have around you. So those historic buildings now become kind of silly looking because you've built something so garish that it doesn't fit anymore.
No, I don't disagree with you at all about that. But I think that if someone has a building that already looks garish, just to use the word, then why make them put in something that's completely
Well, again,
not? Just a portion, not redoing the whole building I'm
right.
talking about.
They have a mechanism for appealing that. I
Right.
mean, they have a legitimate reason, like, all I can afford to do is make this building more weather efficient, so I'm putting new windows in. I mean, they come with a reason they're doing that. I think that's
As long as we don't then
legitimate.
force them to put in like an old window, like an old-fashioned looking window into like a more modern looking building.
Yeah, I don't think that's the intent, but, I mean,
Well, also too, though, why, if you play devil's advocate here, if the Legion wants to put on a new roof, why do they have to, file a minor site plan to come before the planning board to put on a new roof? Which is what this would require, and then they've got to get all the abutters notices, et cetera.
I mean, that's what we're asking people to do. I
And the
don't
reason
disagree with
for it
that.
is that they share, the reason that they are where they are is because they want to be in a cool place. And the price of being in a cool place is you have to, work with the other people. And so if you want to go take the Legion and stick it out in the middle of nowhere, then you don't have to do that, right? but there's a cost to having your place downtown.
Was the Legion there before the historic overlay district was created?
What
Then you
year,
grandfathered in.
what was the year when this was?
1980.
Oh, yeah. Can't remember what building was there before. It's a place.
You can't, I don't think you can be grandfathered
You
for the,
wouldn't,
or whatever
no.
it's called these days, because you're trying to deal with buildings that were built like
So
200
just so
years
there's
ago.
some consensus for Bart, where are people at, relative to this proposal applying to all lots within the district versus all, lots that have a registered historic building within the district? Yes, well, it would be in existence, right, within the district. It's the whole district, or, that's the question, kind of, maybe let's go around and see where people weigh in on that.
I
Okay.
prefer the district approach as opposed to the inventory building approach. I reviewed the inventory and inventory buildings that is. You can go on their website and find all of them. There's a walking tour and historical information about every historic building on their index. Not all of them are in this district. Many of them are not. So let's clarify that to begin with. This is not, a lot of them are not in this district. I think the value of creating a district, again, is to enhance what's already been invested, I feel like, in downtown, is towards all that work that went into the district already, whether it was the sidewalks, the lighting. We made a lot of accommodations towards that, and I feel like this furthers that same work. By doing this, we're making the same kind of protection and investment. And yes, we're putting a burden on the property owners that live there. I don't disagree with
You're
it.
district-wide.
I'm district-wide.
Jeff?
I think I would walk around and look. Maybe I haven't walked around some parts of this district, recently enough to have a good handle. I mean, I do know that most of the buildings in that area are pretty old. What effect would it have on businesses that change hands on Main Street?
Well, if you're not changing the use, you don't come to site plan, but if somebody's, like, take the cat thing that kind of brought all this on anyway. All they need is come in and get a building permit. They weren't subject to anything, now they would be.
They would be subject to minor
Yeah.
site plan review.
Right. Or if a business came in and wanted to change the front door or the windows, they would come in.
They would come
Yeah.
in
Regardless of the building. I mean,
if it's within the district.
so.
Yeah, exactly.
You're kind of like questioning. I'm definitely questioning.
I just wanted to clarify one thing. So, when we pick certain buildings that we would regulate, is that something that planning board can actually do legally?
But if it only applied, if it was rewritten to apply to buildings that are on the historic register within the historic district.
Then we would be
Versus-
able to regulate it as a planning
Yeah, because
board.
that's how it would be rewritten. So it's buildings only or the whole district,
Okay.
or don't know.
Okay, so from a legal perspective, it's clear that we can big buildings on the register and we can regulate standards just for those buildings.
Well, I'm not an attorney, I don't know what you can and
Okay.
can't do there, but I mean, it's,
Okay,
We can get
yeah,
clarification.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get a feel for the board.
Okay.
Weird.
well, before I would say that I'm in favor of the zoning district because it's just more clear.
I think I'm also in favor of the district, so I like that, intent, right, of maintaining the charm of the district. I think that the danger comes in those buildings that are currently in the district that do not comply.
Very good. Yeah, okay. Somebody bumped one of the panic buttons.
Oh, no.
Oh,
Everything's cool up?
Yeah, everything's good.
Where are they? I guess we should know where they
Yeah,
are.
where are they?
But thanks for coming.
Do you know
I'm
they-
not making
Keep bumping, yeah.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
that's me. I didn't even know it was there.
Surprise.
Good to know.
Have a
Okay,
good night.
You too.
thanks.
Yeah.
Wow,
There's some really serious issues.
with all the craziness going on, that's good to know.
Is it just there?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, I always thought it was over there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that the danger and what we have to guard against is the buildings that are in, you know, looking at the map here, right, and trying to come up with, all right, what are the impediments that are gonna come up? And you can see, you know, the Legion Hall, the post office. This also has Weaver's Row, right, so Kume, Panzanella's, Deciduous.
Newbury Farms.
Right, Newbury Farms. None of those buildings comply with any sort of historic vernacular, right? So those buildings, I think, should be allowed to continue in their current state. And if they need new windows, they should be able to put in windows in keeping with their current structure, right? We shouldn't be requiring them to put on, you know, the post office would be required to put on some sort of a building, a roof facade to hide the utilities on their roof if they had to replace their AC unit on their roof. So I think we have to have some sort of clause to grandfather those structures that they are non-conforming to the historic district and can remain that way as long as they remain in their current phase, right? But if Newbury Farms burned to the ground and was to be rebuilt, then it could be imposed into the historic district, and maybe you want to have it rebuilt in a new way to conform with that structure. you know.
So you're, you know, existing, yeah, that can be kind of
So
added
the
in.
way I can think of,
Please.
sorry, yeah.
Scott?
I'm strongly in favor of the district, because the whole point of this thing was to preserve downtown. And I read in here enough latitude, the way I read it, that we would be able to accomplish those goals. I don't think we're trying to do anything stupid, but I see it as much a expression of intent as anything else, that, you know, that we intend to keep downtown nice, you know, that, well, maybe nice is the wrong word, that we intend to maintain the character of
The
downtown.
character and the charm.
Yeah.
But I think you have to be careful of the intent of this board and what we are now thinking, and then 10 years down the road when, you know, when we're not all on this board, and what is the intent then that we intend to, you know, that we
You have a lot of
intend
that
to-
discussion. I mean, the post office is probably gonna be the one that's, is gonna be the biggest one, let's say, on a redevelopment site at some point. And does that get redeveloped like the clapboard architecture that's to the, you know, across the street and to the left side as you face the property? Or is it the, you know, the brick row buildings where the big beam is? Or the bank, you know, when you've got,
Yeah.
Yeah, or Weaver's Row, I think, is a good example. The buildings there, that's in the district. If one of those places wanted to, their window got smashed out, like, what do they do if a rock goes through the window? They have to come to us, like, notice everyone, come to us, say, can we put a big piece of glass back, or do we have to put something in a wood frame?
Yeah.
I mean, I know what Granta will say, no, it's
Six
ridiculous for you to have to put a
you
wood
probably wanna
frame
jump in
in
here,
there.
that this
But,
ordinance language would need to be revised, I
Yeah.
think, in order to address
I think so,
what you guys
you
are
know,
saying, as to what really applies.
right. But what the
It
would
board-
trigger-
what
it
the
would
board-
trigger this.
what
or is
the
this
board
lot
wants.
no longer, I mean, it's in its current form, and it's far from historic, right?
And the same on all of these
But it
new
goes back to
construction.
the character, like, what are you trying to accomplish within that district? What do you want to see in that district moving forward? Say there's a total tear down.
But it made sense when
But
the
then
gas
there'd be a site
station was
plan, right?
there, when the parking lots
Yeah.
were
Versus
there,
the-
and then it was
versus
all
the house.
urban infill, right? It made sense that they were in the district. I would agree, are we to a point where the properties within the historic district really need to be reviewed, re-identified as to whether or not they should still be in the district?
So a suggestion that I have is, you see this in floodplain language, you've seen other like shoreline districts, that 50% of the value through a redevelopment is crossed, then the board could review it.
So in other words, they wouldn't have to come before the board if it was less than 50%.
Correct.
So that takes out the broken window,
Right.
the roof shingles being replaced,
Yeah.
things like that. I could support that. I just think that, I don't want to get too far down the road of some sort of spot zoning for these existing buildings that were older.
That's why you do it in the district.
Yeah, I just
Yeah, no,
don't,
you
I
got,
don't like
you got
carving out
four,
too
you've
much.
got a majority of the board that wants to do districts, so yeah, we're good
Yeah.
on that. You know? That's why it's like, let's.
But
move on to the next one.
yeah, I think that's a good compromise.
Like a trigger.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that one of the reasons why we're doing this was one, and I don't want to mention what cafe it was, but that was what stirred the controversy. So, and there was a minor change, so we definitely wouldn't trigger much of it. It could be just a different color of the facade, and that already, kind of sparked controversy in the town. So,
Right, but again, how much work did they put into this? So they would have to demonstrate, what's the building permit value, what's the assessed value, so we have to do by assessed value. And that's the threshold. Again, the thresholds could be adjusted.
Right, it could be a
Yeah.
change of facade, it doesn't have to be a number too, I mean, it could be what would trigger coming before our board, is kind of the question.
Yeah, that's tough, right? That's like that pornography. You can't define it, but you know it when you see it.
So I think, that's something we should discuss.
That is tough if you're conceptually you're thinking about doing something. You actually have to go down the road to a full price and quote and full end to do the analysis of have I reached the 50%.
And that is a cumulative, do you want a one-time, so.
And then if you do, and then if it's 49%, does somebody say, I don't know, I
Right.
mean, it could, yeah, that is interesting.
But, so maybe it is a change of a facade, or an expansion of the building, or.
Well, to some extent, there's going to be a public forum, and I would be shocked if we didn't get a lot of input. And maybe some of the input we're going to get would help us answer these questions.
I think we need language to go
Yeah.
forward with first.
Okay.
I think I might have misunderstood, Scott. Originally, was it just the older structures you're worried about, or was it the whole district? I think you just answered that a minute ago, and I might have just not quite.
Yeah, it started as the district, it started as, if you talk to people that have moved into Newmarket, or that visit Newmarket, the first thing they always talk about is how cute the downtown is. The look and feel of the downtown is what attracts people to Newmarket.
It's eclectic. You'll hear
Okay.
that word often. It's
Yeah.
not, oh, it's such a cute New England town. It's really not, the conversation is more that it's just a real quaint town, or it's, there's a lot of eclectic, buildings in town.
But it's the downtown district that attracts people. That of the people that like it, they really like it, right? And so the thing is, how do you stop from killing the goose that laid the golden egg, right? And so, and then there were objections to that. No matter what we talk about, there's obviously problems with it, right? And then we started looking at historic buildings and specifically, that kind of went back and forth. But I think focusing on the district is a really good place that's where the people look, right?
Well, in the same token, it became eclectic because it wasn't regulated.
Yeah.
There's areas in this district that are well off.
Many generations.
They're well off Main
Right
Street,
now.
where people that visit the town to go out to dinner or
Yeah.
visit the waterfront probably would never go.
Like
that-
Arlen Chafee used to call it the Free Republic of Newmarket.
Like that, past Lincoln, like down that way, past by the fields. Community health outfield, I believe that is down there.
Yeah.
Like down there?
Well, I
mean,
think too, from a tax base perspective, we also need to look at, there are probably a lot of properties in here that we want urban renewal and, you know, in better urban infill, if you will. Right, there's just, when you think about this inventory within the current district. And we've seen some of that happen. I think we also need to be conscientious of, if it's overregulated, then who will be able to come in and do these kind of projects, or what kind of businesses will be needed to support that, and then do you lose the charm of what people like here, you know? Well, they like to come to Newmarket, maybe not so much going into Portsmouth anymore, because that's like going into Boston.
Yeah, I mean, or if you're out, like I said, down, you know, there are some parts of this that I'm sure are not drawing people to Newmarket. Because there's, it's highly unlikely that they're walking out to the end of the, I just can't remember the name of the street, that's the extension of Spring Street.
It's Lincoln and Washington.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
it's
is that-
called,
is
yeah,
that
what's
Sam
the one that
Street?
goes down to Main Street, or the?
No,
North
not
Main
Elm Street, the one that,
Yeah, I can't remember what it's
Chapel?
called either, and I lived there.
Central? The Central
No, the
first
one
and
that-
Central.
No, it's going out
Spring
to
Street
furthest
ends
to the
at-
north there.
That's
Spring
Nichols
Street-
Ave.
Nichols Ave, yeah, so out Nichols Ave,
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible, but I don't think that Nichols Ave is the charm that draws people back and forth to town.
But they had the
Back in-
historic homes because they were the mill row houses.
Oh, that's what they were. They didn't actually look that old, so they're like from the 19th century.
Yeah, they're mill row houses.
Yeah, they sort of look like it.
They're neat houses, for sure.
Yeah.
I assume that, I don't know what they are in this condition these days, but I know 15 or 20 years ago, there were rental students with, rental houses with a lot of college kids in them, and they were getting pretty beat up. I didn't know, like, these are actually primed to be restored. I don't know what they're like these days.
So are we, just to kind of pull this back together, are we thinking we should do two things? One is tighten up some kind of trigger of with properties within the district come to planning board. And then also, should we be reviewing the properties that are currently designated in the district to look at whether or not they all should stay in, it should be expanded, it should be contracted? Should we be looking at both of those?
The green is current, right?
Correct.
That's the current.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how that was created, so I don't know what the thought was. I agree that when you look at things that are north of Elm Street there, it does, right? I'm saying that correctly. That's a residential neighborhood. That obviously, there's historic buildings that are in that date from the 1820s, and there's ones that aren't. So I don't know why they picked that, and a part of that was also redeveloped. Like someone already pointed out, the lots along the river have new houses on them. So those aren't even historic houses, those lots. They were all built, I believe, by Chinberg.
Correct.
So,
But at the time, there was an old house on the lot that was then torn down.
yeah.
And then this was redone.
So, you know, the old mill manager's house, that's obviously a very historic house that's right on the corner of Elm and Winterweight. I don't know. I guess I don't have enough expertise to know what should be in and out.
So I'll look to see, through legal counsel, if this, you know, plan board can regulate this, but let's see two things, right? If you're within the historical district, you go over the threshold, wherever that may be, you go to site plan review. No matter what the building is. If you are property or a house that's on the historical registry district within the historical district, then you go to site plan review as well. So that's the compromise where,
Yeah, that sounds good.
you know, a house that's not on the register, you know, it goes over a certain threshold, then it goes to the planning board because we want to keep that feeling within the district.
Right,
Wow.
and or new construction, right? If you're tearing down a building, then it.
Right, it's 50% of that.
Well, that's true,
manufactured.
yeah.
And and again, dating back to this, the mills were not redeveloped, so there was obviously a huge concern of, and I know it was, because when I was on the NCDC, the developers would just come in and tear the whole buildings down. That was gonna be cheaper than trying to rehab mills. Okay, so we talked to developers that's where they were heading. Or even when Shinburn did the Bryant Rock, the whole infrastructure of the middle mill came all down. So the mills were not redeveloped other than Rivermore. And then you had the gas station, we had the Eagles, which was more of a building like the Legion as far as architecture. We had all the Quonset hut in the open lots, the gas station. So I can kind of see where this was being created. But I think, are we now moving towards not so much a historic overlay district, just from what I'm hearing in conversations, but it's more of this downtown overlay? Is that the concern of what's driving this? What is going to happen in our downtown? And are we really looking more not dealing with historic overlay district, but the downtown overlay, which is Route 108, correct?
Yeah.
And is that where we want these regulations to apply? And then it really is, the conversation there really isn't what's historic, what's not historic, it's really about what do we want along 108 within the town.
And that was the book build off that. And that's what we'll be doing soon, the rezoning.
From Gateway.
The Gateway. We can bring that type of style down. So what I mean by that is there will be consensus on type of buildings and architecture that'll be along 108, which can be then used in this area as well. And I'll go through a public iterative process where everyone understands what type of buildings they want to see along that corridor. Excuse me.
And I'm not suggesting it's only 108, because as you look to the future, Chapel, Central, Granite, the idea with this downtown is you would think that it is going to expand up towards Spring Street. That our downtown won't always just be considered Main Street. I'm just throwing it out there. Does that make more sense? Because I keep hearing everyone's talking about the downtown,
Yeah,
not about
it makes more
historic
sense. I
buildings
think the
or
problem is
properties.
this is a good, the overlay district is just a good template. Right?
Well, Bart could give us the same thing for the downtown overlay.
Yeah.
It would just be, you'd see different properties there.
Right.
And then when do we expand the downtown district?
Well, I prefer this. I feel like the preponderance of the buildings are still historic. Yes, you can find examples of non-historic buildings in there, but if you were to do an actual count of all of the buildings that are in this district, the majority are still, I would say, fall into that historic bucket.
Spot on. I was thinking of exempting certain parcels from like the fixing of a window, but that would be pretty spot.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, I think it's
But,
gonna be a trigger.
I mean, I like the compromises that Bart suggested with the percentages and, so I think that works for me, but I mean, if we need to, I don't know, if there's more discussion or research
Well-
required.
I would just say let's continue the discussion in the next meeting.
Okay.
And then people can send thoughts to Bart, want them to work on anything.
Do you know that, do you have like, is there a definition, like a legal usage of the word reconstruction versus redevelopment?
I'll see if we have anything in the zoning ordinance. If not, then we're gonna use the dictionary, Merriam-Webster's definition. So what do you think? We can tailor it and make our own definition if we wanted to.
That's why I'd asked what definitions were in.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure, because redevelopment to me is different than reconstruction. And I didn't know if that should be included in that list if we're gonna.
But I do think it's important that we're clear as a board as to what are we really trying to achieve? What is the true objective here? And because I can play devil's advocate where we have this and why was it created, yet why weren't all the houses along Spring Street, which are pretty much the same age as some of these on these backs and side streets? Or why wasn't all the New Village, which are the same era as some of the houses over here in Nichols Ave? Right, so there was, how this came to be, I don't know. What was picked, you know, what got picked, you know, what didn't. Why doesn't it come all the way down to New Road, to the railroad tracks? You know, why did it stop here? So I think, there's some, why didn't it go across the street where one of the historic homes is on Jerry Ave? So that's why I was really trying to say, okay, what is really the goal we're trying to achieve? And then maybe not get stuck in a box as to the mapping that's before us.
Like I said, Scott, originally, you know, is it fair to say that you're concerned about downtown?
Yes,
Okay. So it sounds like the original intent was protect downtown.
yes.
Okay. So that sounds like that's the objective.
As a-
Really what we want is a downtown historic district.
Or
It's kind of.
over.
Or downtown historic overlay, yeah.
Well, if we use his compromise, which is we have an overlay, and if a building within that overlay is in the historic registry, then it has to be reviewed, anything you do to it. Where if it's not in the registry, then you make the threshold.
Mhm.
And that satisfies, I think, the intent of trying to keep downtown historic and your concerns about, you know, stupid little things.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's, my biggest concern, I guess, is the buildings that are there, that we're not imposing some new regulation on them and putting that, you know, granted, we took it out of the words, but imposing an economic hardship on those who are already there, who have been there for years.
Right, but then if it goes to like a redevelopment, which we shall define at some point in time.
Right.
Yeah, redevelopment
You know,
is
they're
actually
making a
true.
significant investment to change the building, so
Right.
at that point, is that an opportunity
Yes.
to comport with the downtown?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah, because, I mean, by all means, I also recognize and appreciate the fact that we've lost a lot of historic buildings downtown, I'm sure, over the years, right? If I look at the old black and white pictures and see what it was and think, wow, what a shame that building's still not there. So if there had been something there to protect that and incentivize keeping that building as it was at the time, then, you know, that would be would have been a
Yeah.
benefit to the town.
Again, I mean, I'll take my father's garage as a perfect example. Who can argue that you know, what do we call it? That the reconstruction of that facade is 1,000,000 times better than it was before. If this had applied, that would not have been able to have been done unless you were just giving them all the waivers,
Yeah,
right? So I just think that all good intentions, you know, might have unintended consequences.
I was wondering about the 50% threshold, so if I had a house that was not on the register, it was in town, and I could do like siding 1 year.
well, that's the question, like, what
And
is
then
the
if you,
cumulative?
then if you hit a cumulative point, what happens?
I think it's gotta be designated as you're changing.
Yeah, but what happens? Like, I hit 50%, I've already got 49% done
Yeah, I don't
in
think
a
it'll go
different
that
style, and once I hit 50, I gotta use a totally different style, because I
That's
hit
the thing,
50.
maybe you don't, I mean, you know.
Yeah,
again,
I'm
that's-
being a devil's advocate
Yeah,
here.
no,
I'm
no, I
just,
understand.
I'm trying to see,
I
yeah.
think no matter how you write it, you could find reasons why it's a problem.
But is the
No,
concern is.
Right now,
like,
there's nothing, right? Right
My
now.
concern about that is you create a game for someone to play to
Yeah.
not meet.
So is
if
the
you
question-
have a 50% threshold or something, or some number.
But
Yeah.
we want to prevent somebody from buying Johnny Boston's building, tearing it down, and just putting up a McDonald's or something, right?
Yeah, to me, that's different, right? That's major, is that a major step?
Yeah, regardless, I think that the idea is to protect
Or just buys it and throws vinyl siding on it.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Right.
but that might be on the National Historic
Yeah.
Register, it might be
No,
one of those buildings, but.
But again,
But
this
if it
whole
wasn't-
idea of a threshold, I think it's gotta be more black and white. Are you changing a facade? Is it something that's being changed versus something that's being repaired or maintained?
I think that's a decent threshold. Are you fixing something that's broken like a window? Or are you
Making a
replacing
change.
something and making
Yeah.
a significant change to the structure, like adding a facade?
You're just changing the facade. You're taking it from
Taking one down and putting
painted
Stone.
block to brick,
Yeah.
you know, or clapboard to brick, or
that's that's like a,
brick to
to
clapboard.
me, that's a major change in the hour appearance of the entire building, I guess. Yeah,
So
that's a
maybe
tough
I
area.
could define like minor change, major change, something like that, which would trigger two things. One is building permit, the other one, planning board review, based on this dialogue going on right now.
Oh.
Meanwhile, there's a threshold.
Well, maybe you could ask Dave what triggers a building permit. So what triggers a building permit of something that's done on buildings downtown? And then does, again, unintended consequences, it may be that somebody doesn't need a building permit to do something. You don't need a building permit to paint the building, and you don't need a building permit anymore to put on a roof.
Or probably replace a window.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, you do?
Yes, that's a safety issue.
Okay.
So, maybe hear from Dave on that and then kind of play it.
Is that why we changed it? Because I thought originally it was gonna be kind of review the building level when someone went in for a permit. It would be kind of like this isn't historic, or it is, because I thought,
Yeah, so
we had
the
talked
idea-
about not saddling people with like a big expense just to put siding on, which would be notification and maybe, it's not a huge expense depending how many butters they have.
That's the thing, what are we trying to protect? What's the town trying to protect? What's the intent?
Yeah, you're gonna do something on Main Street and you're across from Rivermore, so now you're, how many butters are you notifying?
I thought we had talked about that before with the building inspector, when someone went for the permit, would kind of be like, no, you can't use that in this district, but I don't know how that
So
would.
that needs more standards. So you would follow, I think when there's some sort of subjectivity, it's better to have a board than an administrative person make those decisions.
Okay. So shall we just, we don't even need a motion to do
No,
this, right?
I have work to do, so.
Right, next on the agenda. Pursuant to section 32-238, impact fees and municipal of the town of Newmarket, New Hampshire, notice is hereby given that the planning board shall set a public hearing to amend the impact fee schedule to remove the payment required of water and sewer impact fees for new development or take any action relative to their choosing.
Yes.
So this is just to set a public hearing?
Yep.
Well, let's just move this to May 9th. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to move this to May 9th.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Who's second?
Oh, I'll second.
Okay, any, Eric didn't have anything to report. I don't have anything. Committee report?
Tomorrow is the second hearing for the Community Power Coalition proposal for Newmarket. So if you're interested, you can either watch it or come down. There'll be a presentation about it, so you can learn more about it, and you can ask questions.
And just so the public is clear, if Newmarket participates in that, then all the delivery, not the delivery, the
Source of
all the-
electricity.
then everyone gets changed over, correct?
Correct.
Unless you opt out.
Right.
Okay.
So, for instance, Nashua just started their program, and currently I believe most people are, if they're with Eversource here, I don't know what direct energy is, I think that's the alternative, but I think Eversource is in the 20s per kilowatt hour. Nashua just negotiated 16 cents kilowatt hour, so significant decrease in the cost of their power. From that's the rate their payers will be paying.
But what I think is important that the public knows, as far as the public coming out, that this would be, I know because this was happening in Portsmouth, it's automatic.
Yep.
So everybody, whether you want to or not, is going into the.
Similar to Eversource, right?
Yeah.
If you don't opt out of Eversource, you're with Eversource. So if you don't opt out with Community Power, you're with Community Power. But it's set up so that it's gonna be less, so it won't get even approved if it doesn't say it's the ratepayer.
So who would be included? The whole town, you're saying?
Yep.
Everyone.
So I guess
Yeah.
I missed the beginning of this. So this is,
Just to be clear, you
town-
still get your bill from if you have
Right.
Eversource,
Yeah.
Eversource
But
will
it-
still bill you,
right.
but you get, the bill is broken in two.
Right, like I have an alternate supplier for my electricity.
Right.
Yeah.
So you
So-
can keep that if you want.
Okay.
Well, you have to call them.
But I would have to opt back
You have
into
to-
it?
Correct.
No, you have to opt out.
Opt out of Community Power to choose your
And then you-
alternate provider.
Right,
Yeah.
and then you'll just stay the way you were.
Yep.
The other thing to keep in mind is that in addition to having lower rates, which Community Power is sort of already demonstrating that they're able to deliver, right? They have to build up a certain surplus in their system to start for the first few years. But after that, that money can then be reinvested in further lowering and creating a more stable structure for your power delivery. So for instance, they could invest that in local energy projects that would decrease your energy bill. They can create energy efficiency programs that would decrease your energy bill. That doesn't happen with our current providers. You pay as much money as you want into there's no reinvestment by them. So that's part of why why towns are doing this, is because New Hampshire, unlike other states around us, doesn't have that happening in it right now. So Community Power gives us an option to be part of a system that will actually reinvest in both saving energy and securing energy supply by creating more local sources of energy. So that's kind of the whole point of it, is to, beyond just lowering our rates, actually put us in a better, more secure position than we currently are, where we're totally at the whims of the price of natural gas.
Yeah.
There's no protection for us. In 6 months, our rates could go to 50 cents.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, now so Community Power is a third party, they're not a electric generator, they're not a.
They're just like
they're not
any
a
other,
generator.
just like if you buy your energy through direct energy.
Direct
They're just,
energy or
yeah,
any of
they're
those
just
sorts.
buying they're going out and buying power. The difference is because they're a nonprofit, they're not paying shareholders, they're not paying the larger salaries, they have lower costs for that reason.
So are they currently, if you go to newhampshire.gov, you can look at all available.
No, it's a
electricity
coalition.
supply.
Community Power is going to be a coalition of towns across the state. So Newmarket was one of the original towns that joined that coalition.
Yeah.
So there's, Nashua, Portsmouth, Hanover, Lebanon, there's lots of towns, dozens of towns that have joined the coalition, and one county. I believe it's Cheshire County, the whole county has joined the coalition.
So,
Yeah, you can't join as an individual. You
Right.
yeah, like if you live in Lee and Lee doesn't participate,
Yeah,
then
then
you just can't sign up
Can't
for
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
Nothing to do with delivery though, right?
No?
You mean the power lines, that part? Yeah.
That's,
No, that stays the
that's
same.
just your supplier,
Yeah.
yeah.
Jeff?
We meet Thursday, so, and our last planning board meeting was after our
Okay.
previous compound.
Scott?
So we had the water treatment people test for PFAS, and they have found no PFAS in the waste treatment or the water supply in Newmarket, so that's good. I'm not sure where this is, but there's a bridge on Ashwamp Road that is in need of repair, and we've approved the budget to redo the deck on that. Where is it?
I'm assuming it's the one over the Piscassic River?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Price.
Oh, okay.
Oh, right before
Near the
prices.
golf course, kind of, Yeah.
No,
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 Oh, the other way.
Up by Four Corners, Price is
Oh,
Right.
up there.
That's the
okay.
only bridge on it.
All right.
Piscassic River.
Right. And then we finally have approved, it took us a couple tries, but we finally approved this 15-minute parking at Central Street. So there's going to be a couple of parking spaces that are limited to 15 minutes, and the idea is if you're trying to just, buy a cup of coffee or you take out or something like that, there's a place to park now where you just park, go get it, and leave.
Okay, thanks. Tim? Oh, Jake, are you on any
Yeah, I'm not on any committee, so.
part?
Yeah, well, I'll speak for Jane too. We did, CIP did meet.
I still like looking at James.
And we met on the 28th, and we were going over the new form and new procedures for this year to make it a much smoother process. So excited about that. And then, so we'll be, I think, end of this month again. The CIP committee will. And then for me, I'm working on the RFP for the new zoning initiative to get consultants, so that should be done later on this month and sent out. And hopefully we'll have consultants selected by June, and we'll start that part of the process.
So we approved this impact fee report pending approval by the planning board.
Great, let me
Oh,
rephrase that.
you
Yeah.
did.
The town council has
Oh, okay.
already approved it.
Yeah, so town council changed the fee structure in section 14, and then the planning board at the next meeting will have a public hearing to amend the methodology to align it with that. So, yes. What was that? That's all I'm written down, so.
Okay. There's no other business, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Tim, Spur, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Right, Jane, when you need it.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.